The Love Your Body podcast is brought to you by Dani Fitness, along with Cinema 83, and our featured sponsor, Music City FitCon, presented by Core and Health Fitness. If you're looking to come to the next Move Fit pop-up, it's actually happening at the Music City FitCon in October. So I actually have a deal with them going on for $30. So you can come get your Move Fit on and come to my panel discussion, which is going to be epic. So I'm very excited about it. You can find the deal on my Instagram. Link is in my bio. It's going to be an awesome event. You can actually get CECs. So if you're somebody looking to start your healthy lifestyle journey, if you're looking to start teaching, training, you can come take class all day long. But I will be speaking and doing Move Fit that day. So I'd love to see the Music City FitCon. For those of you who've seen my new LYB gym, you've seen all the amazing equipment in there. My Stairmaster as well as my RXD bench came from Core and Health Fitness, and I'm so honored and excited to have them as a sponsor for this podcast, as they believe in the mission that everyone should move their body and love their body throughout their journey. If you're looking to add pieces of equipment to your home gym, you can reach out to Tony Gray. He's my contact at Core and Health Fitness. His contact is tgray@corehandf.com. So tell him I sent you and that you heard about him and heard about Core and Health Fitness on the Love Your Body podcast. Everyone, welcome to the Love Your Body podcast. I'm so excited for our guest, Naomi. So Naomi, you are not only a client, you are an ambassador, you represent the brand just in so many ways. And I have just been honored, blessed, excited to work with you. You are one of my strongest clients, hardest workers, and you truly have embodied the mission. And so I thought, what a better way than to think about what a strong woman that I know and have someone on like you. Mm-hmm. And I know you've been listening to the podcast. I thought you've probably listened to more than most, which has been really cool. And you support the brands and the friends that I love as well, which is awesome. And so I want you to tell everybody just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get kind of into how we met and everything like that.
Yeah, of course. Well, first, I appreciate you letting me come on and do this. I mean, it's easy to support a brand that I believe so wholeheartedly in. Yeah. But I guess a little bit about me. I grew up in Minnesota. I was born and raised in a small town called Farmington. Okay. When I was younger, it was probably about a population of 12, 13,000. It's doubled, probably even more now. But went to college at Winona State for 2 years, got my general associates there. Okay. And then I transferred to Kansas State University and got my bachelor's. Okay. Now I work in accounting in healthcare management, and been doing that we're coming on 5 years. August is 5 years. Okay. So that's what I've been doing, and working out's my passion. It's what I love to do. It helps ease my stress. Oh, so, yeah. I mean, it's noticeable now when I don't get my movement in that it's a problem. Well, it's your lifestyle too, which I think that has, even over the past, I'd say really 6 months. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a switch and stuff since because we met, so for everybody that has listened and followed along, they know about the tire flip and everything like that. Right. That was the first time we met, right? Yeah, because you came to the booth. Yep, that was the first time that I saw you, heard about you, everything. I was actually there for something totally different. Okay. I was there to watch the CrossFit competition, Battle of the Barbells, or Battle at the Barbells, whatever. That was happening at the Nashville what was it? The Expo. Yes. Yes. Yep. Yep. And so I was there to watch that because one of my goals at that time was to compete in that competition in their scaled division. So I just wanted to get an idea of how they kind of ran it for their individuals versus their teams. Yeah. But I planned to be there the whole day because I had drove from 90 minutes away. Right. So I took some time before they got started and walked around at the booths, and your charisma, your character just pulled me in. That was so cool. From when, I don't even know when we were talking about this, but when you even said that, I've been following since 2019. I think you put it in the group, in the client group or whatever, and I was like, wait, when was that exactly? And so so that was so special because for anybody that's been a business owner that understands going to these events, it's a lot. Sponsorships cost a lot of money. You set up, you have to get ambassadors, people that you hope will show up or, whatever. And I was competing that day with Strongman, so I was really focused on that. But I remember me and
Wes had like gone and sat up the night before and everything. And then, you know, I was excited to be there, but, you know, it was just going to be a lot. And I didn't really know who was going to show up, right? And to support and everything like that. Clients came to surprise me. I mean, people were at my booth. My best friend showed up. Like, they had signs. I mean, it was like one of the best days, right? And so I'm so glad that, not that there's been any bad events or anything that if you would have saw me at or whatever, because all of them have been really good, but it's just, that was such a special day. Yeah. And just like, and that was the day that, you know, flipped the tire and all that happened. And it was like, when I look back at my life, it will be a day that I remember forever, because it was so, I don't know, just, I mean, it ended up being life-changing, right?
Pivotal. I feel like, as somebody that followed, that was really when your business started taking off, because like I said before that, I hadn't heard anything of Dani D Fitness, even though I drove through Nashville almost every day to get to work. But after that, and after the video or the tire flip went viral, that's when everything seemed to take off. And I mean, it was just your message that you were trying to pursue at that time was so inspirational to me, because I was struggling with things, not realizing how much it was going to help me in a few months.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I know we've touched on that, but we haven't really been able to dive into like what was going on at that time.
So 2019, there was actually quite a few things that happened over 2019, 2020 outside of COVID. If somebody was to ask me today, I think that would probably be what I would call my rock bottom after all these things happened. But it started with, I had been married to somebody, and we had been married for 4 years. And there had been some distance for a while, and I'd been trying to repair that and figure out what we could do to make that better. I had my ideas of what was going on. As women, we're kind of intuitive to things like that without even having the evidence.
We know what's up. We already know.
So, but I wasn't the kind of person that was going to invade his privacy and, you know, go searching for a problem if it didn't exist. But, so kind of fast forward, we hit our 4-year anniversary in October. And things were just kind of weird that day. He just really didn't seem like himself, and he kind of reclused for the week following that. Like, he completely shut me out, just kind of locked himself in a room, in a different room.
At this time, you're in Alabama?
This is in Clarksville, Tennessee. So I met this guy in high school. We were high school sweethearts. Senior year, I guess you could really call it, but still high school sweethearts. And he ended up joining the military when I was in my freshman year of college. And he went off to basic, and then he came back, and the plan was for me to finish college, and then we'd figure it out from there. I was going to graduate from Winona State in Minnesota. But plans kind of escalated. Military kind of forces you, in order to get certain benefits, you guys need to be married. So we ended up getting married. I moved to Kansas State, or Kansas, which is why I transferred to Kansas State University. And then after a couple years, he got stationed in Clarksville at Fort Campbell. So there's been a couple places, so I'm trying to make sure. But yes, he got stationed at Fort Campbell. So I was living in Clarksville, Tennessee at this time, which is 12 hours away from my hometown. So we hit our 4-year anniversary in October of 2019, and it was like a week or a week and a half later, I came home from work. Now, mind you, I'm getting up at this time, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, driving to work out in Nashville, and then going to my job, and then getting home because of Nashville traffic at like 9 o'clock, and I have to go right to bed. I came home. He was nowhere to be found, and I saw divorce papers on the counter with his ring.
Oh my gosh. That's like right after your anniversary.
Right after our anniversary.
Because what did you say you did to celebrate that? Or
we really didn't do anything. We went to a movie and Taco Bell. So there was really no plans. Whereas in the past, we had gone to like a nice dinner and stuff like that. Like, things just seemed off. Like, yes, it was on a work night that it happened, like our anniversary but there's options.
For sure.
So things were just off. And a year leading up to that, like I said, I had noticed the distance. I had my thoughts of what was going on.
But I didn't find out for sure until way after.
Oh, okay.
But I had said, okay, well, what's going on? Like, let's talk about this, because this seems like a very hard and immediate decision for something that I'm not even really sure what's going on. I don't know what you're thinking. You've kind of been distant. So let's talk about this. Like, do you want to try therapy? Do you want to try, talking things through?
Let's fight for this.
Right. Yeah. And he just was not receptive to that. When I saw him later that night, his exact words were, "I think you need to go back to Minnesota with people that love you." And that hit really hard.
Yeah.
Because that confirmed everything for me without even knowing still at this point that there was something going on that he just wasn't telling me, that he didn't love me anymore.
Right.
And somebody that I had wholeheartedly put my life into for 6 years, I think, 4 years
Followed
married.
around, like where he wanted to, where he had to live, everything.
Yes. So that happened in October, and then you've got Christmas, and my dad was getting pretty sick at that time. He had been in and out of the hospital.
Yeah.
So I was dealing with that too, but also going back to Minnesota a lot to handle all the emotions that were going on
and be with family.
And be with family while he was still at the house in Clarksville.
Okay.
And just creating that separation until we could figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
And what we were going to do.
Okay.
At some point towards the end of the year, I lost my ability to do the one thing that kind of pulled me away from that, could re-ground me. Yeah. That's when I injured my back.
Okay.
And I had slipped a disc doing deadlifts, I believe, in CrossFit at some point when I was still working out in Nashville pre-COVID.
Okay.
It was some workout. I think it was a slightly too heavy weight. I just was trying to do too many reps, kind of ego lifting, as you will.
Yep. I know. Yeah, exactly.
So that happened, and it was hard for me to walk. And I didn't do any research at that time. And I went full on into the doctors, just thinking they knew what was going to be best for me.
No.
And it ended up making it worse.
Yeah.
So I found out in the process of going through all their, checkpoints to get it treated, that I actually have 2 discs that are pretty much completely gone in my back.
Yeah.
For degenerative disc disease, I believe is what it's called. So I have 2 that are completely gone, and then I had the one that was slipped. Yeah. And I mean, they sent me to physical therapy, which helped some, but it wasn't correcting the problem. Right. There was never any talk about chiropractic or acupuncture or, other anti-inflammatory.
Any alternative routes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the next thing after physical therapy hadn't cured it. Yeah. They're like, well, we're going to send you to a pain management clinic. And they pretty much just threw pain meds in my face. Not opiates or anything like that. It was just really strong Tylenol and ibuprofen. Yeah. But it still wasn't taking care of the root problem. Mm-hmm. So then they're like, well, we're just going to do nerve blanching. And pretty much just killed all my nerves in my low back, and that extended down into my hamstrings. Jeez, and so I got super weak from all of that because I couldn't feel it. I couldn't control any of it.
Yes, yep.
So that was through the process of like the end of 2019 into 2020. Okay. Our divorce was finalized in April of 2020. Okay. And then my dad had gotten worse. Yeah. And he had a close call. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I got a call from my mom, and I was like, well, do I need to come home? Like, is this it?
Yeah.
Because we had an idea, but you never really know when.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, I'll let you know. Like, right now, he seems to be doing okay, but if things go downhill, I'll let you know. And this was like summertime, I want to say.
And what did they diagnose him with?
It was a multitude of things. Okay. I mean, he was overweight. He was diabetic. He had heart issues, high blood pressure, and then all the things that come with that. But really what happened and what I think led into all this is he had a doctor at one point that it was 2 different meds. I think it was a diabetes med and a heart med that actually you weren't supposed to prescribe together. They interacted bad, and they caused and I can't remember exactly what it is, but essentially your body attacks its own blood cells.
Yes. Okay.
And his white blood cell count got really low, and there's something else. But that time my mom called me and he went in, they did a test and they're like, we don't know how you are alive right now because it's at this super low level and you should not be talking to us right now.
Right.
But he pulled through that one and things were good for a couple months. And then I got a call in September of 2020. It was like, you need to come home.
Okay.
And I went up, I got there that night my mom called me that night. I drove up the next day. It was a 13-hour drive.
Yeah.
Got up there.
Because you came from where?
I came from Tennessee.
Okay, because you were in Tennessee now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you had moved out of the Clarksville house?
I was still in Clarksville.
Okay.
I was actually in the process of looking for the house that I have in Columbia, Tennessee.
Okay, got it.
So I was kind of in the middle of that process, and I had a really great realtor that I knew from the gym that made as much of it as easy as he could, given what I was going through at the time, because I started that process shortly before I got that call from my mom in September.
Okay, gotcha.
I think I started looking for houses at the end of August of 2020. And then I signed for my house towards the end, like September 20th, September 25th, something like that.
Okay.
So it was a quick turnaround. And we can get into that too. There's more there on why there's such a quick turnaround.
Okay.
But so I got that call from my mom. The next day I went up for visiting hours, which we're in COVID now. Hospitals had really strict rules.
Oh, yeah.
The one that he was at, you could only have one person a day.
Yep.
And if you left the building, like outside, you cannot come back inside.
Correct. Yeah.
So I spent the entire day with my dad because my mom gave up her day to have with him so I could see him because we didn't know. And I mean, it was really hard, but I was trying to be strong because I mean, I knew he was scared.
Oh, yeah.
And he ended up passing away like 36 hours later. So it was kind of a triple whammy within a year time span.
Oh, yeah. And this is 2020 of September, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, it's crazy because like our stories, I feel like are so parallel in that because, and the reason I'm like, I'm like, because I'm sure someone's listening, be like, oh, Dani, like, how do you know? Like, what in COVID, that's when my dad was sick as well during that pandemic time, but also Wes as well. So it's like with him, it was like we went to the hospital literally the week of before pandemic, like was full on. I remember being there after finding him like on the ground and like having to do CPR, and literally being like, what happened? I'm in there, no mask, nothing, like just like very chill. Right. And like, hey doc, what's up? Leave. And then the next time that we tried to go into the hospital, like that was a whole nother thing. Right. Because of just everything with COVID and everything like that. They weren't letting nobody see him. Like it was just his mom, like, or it was just his sister. And I'm over here like, literally in a high rise across the road and I can't go there. I can't be there. I can't see. I can't even show up unannounced. You know what I mean? Like to be like, what is this? And then when my dad, ends up having heart failure. When Wes had heart failure, it was at 18%. When my dad had heart failure, it was at 15%. And totally different circumstances, like totally different things. One was abusing his body. The other one, it was just something that happened. Like my dad it happened out of nowhere. And in kind of what you were saying, it's like, I still don't know. We still don't know what it was. They tried to blame it on COVID, but my dad didn't have that. So they were like, yeah, he's overweight. They're like, no, actually, he has, I think it was like 30 pounds of fluid on his chest. And he had went to the doctor and said, hey, guys, something's up. And they were like, yeah, we think you have sleep apnea. Come back for a sleep test later. It wasn't until his heart, like he couldn't breathe, and my mom called me and it was like this weird conversation because I was like, what's up, Mom? I'm busy. Like, what's going on? She's like, we're just hanging out today. Like, what do you got going on? Or whatever. And it was like weird. And then when I hung up the phone, I was like, because I was kind of rude because I was like rushing around, but I remember being like, something's up, right? And literally they went to the hospital that was like right around the corner. And then Mom was like, hey, just like, your dad's in the hospital. He's having heart failure or whatever. And I was like,
what in the world, you know? Mm-hmm. And then they were like, don't bother coming. They're not going to let you in, whatever. And then when they released him, they're like, yeah, there's nothing we can do. We'll put you on this stuff or whatever. And so they released him. And then 12 hours later, he had a stroke. So, and I was even kind of being like, at this point, kind of like, I still don't understand what's going on. Like, whatever. I'm still dealing with own trauma, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, my mom being like, I was supposed to go out of town that Thursday and finally have like a vacation. So I was like excited about that. But something was like, you can't go. Something's telling you like, do not go. And it was that same intuition. And literally I remember packing up my stuff, kind of being resentful. Like, oh, I got to go to Murfreesboro this weekend, like be with them or whatever, which was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But that's how stressed, but then like grief of dealing with what's stuff, like all that stuff, whatever, that like when all that was happening, it was like I show up or I get a text and mom's like, he's back in the hospital. Dad had a stroke or whatever. I grabbed my stuff so quick and raced to the borough. Mm-hmm. And like mom didn't have anything with her. I had to bring her clothes. I had to bring her whatever. Thankfully, my clients who were nurses were there. And like basically the whole time that he was there, like got me in. Mm-hmm. Like so that me and my mom and my dad could spend that weekend together and just like watch a movie and whatever. Right. Because it was just like, I was like, you best believe if this is the last time I'm going to see somebody, like the person like I love the most in the world, like I'm not going to let what happened with Wes or anybody else, like I'm going to be there, you know? Mm-hmm. So I love that you were able to like show up, be there, you know what I mean? Because we get so caught up in our own stuff that even when people tell us like, oh, this could be it, it's like, well, is it? Like, you know, you always think you have more time or you think whatever. And it's just like, no,
you don't.
Yeah.
And, it hurt me that day, but I'm so thankful that I was able to get up there and see him because it's almost like that's what he was waiting for.
Yeah.
Because I was always his little baby girl and he was always so proud of me. But when he saw that I was there, it was like he sighed a breath of relief. I mean, he was sleeping most of the time because he was so bad with everything going on. But at that point, like when he woke up and saw me, it was audible. He was like, okay, now I'm okay.
Yeah. Are you an only child or do you?
No, there's 4 of us.
Oh,
so
okay.
he had a son and a daughter. So my half brother and sister with his ex-wife. And then there's me and my younger brother with my mom.
Okay. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. My dad has 3 kids from his previous and my mom has 1 son from her previous. So I get that dynamic. And do you get along with all of them or were they there or was it just like?
I mean, they were all there. My sister went up there. I know my brother had been up there quite a few times in between because he was still living at home and helping out and seeing, you know, the progression of this. He was kind of the person I went to my younger brother to see really what was going on.
Yeah.
Because my mom, she knows that I can worry too much and I'll come home in a heartbeat if I need to.
Right.
So she was kind of filtering that and kind of deciding when it was serious enough or not.
I see.
But when she was his primary caretaker at that time, you know, helping him. Now, my dad was working up until the very last day that he could. I mean, to the point he was trying to he was trying to get into his dump truck once and passed out in the driveway. He was just a very honorable man. He wanted to provide for his family. But anyway, my younger brother was the one that I would be like, "Hey, how are things looking?" Like,
and he would tell you for real.
Yeah. He was That's like, good. "You might want to consider coming home or pushing mom a little bit to see what she really thinks because, you know, things aren't really great right now. They're a little rocky." So I'm glad I have that relationship with him. I mean, growing up, my younger brother, we fought all the time, but I was so glad that we had made that better so I could do that during that time.
Yeah, no, that is really special for sure. All right, so we're into September of 2020.
Yes.
Yeah. And so dad passes away. Mm-hmm. You're present for this. Mm-hmm. What's going through your head? Is it anger? Is it just sadness? Is it just like how, because you're already dealing with so much trauma anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So they probably haven't been able to process with your ex.
No.
Right.
It was survival mode. Yeah. I mean, like you said, there had been so much to process and I hadn't been able to use my normal outlet. Yeah. And I didn't really know how to handle it. And so I just internalized it and pushed it down and just kept doing the daily.
Yeah.
And
surviving. Yeah.
Right. And so when my dad passed, I mean, my mom understandably was devastated.
Yeah.
She didn't know how to handle it. And so I kind of helped take on that role and tried to get things figured out and try to do it in a way that she wanted to. So getting her input, you know, what kind of time frame are we thinking of doing these things, and who do we need to tell first before, you know, we make a post or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I was the one making the phone calls to my siblings who weren't there that morning. I mean, it was so crazy. My mom came into the room at like 4:00 in the morning. I was asleep.
Yeah.
And she flipped the light on. She was like, Naomi, we got to go right now. And like, I knew what was going on at that time.
Right.
We struggled to get in the hospital, both of us at the same time because of COVID, but eventually we got in there and found out he had already passed away. And so we come back to the house after we did what we needed to at the hospital to get his everything taken care of. And so I called my siblings, and then from there we called his siblings, his sister, and she dispersed the information to his other siblings and my other uncles.
Let me ask you this, if it's not too much, would you have rather had been there at the moment, or like, is that something that you sit with still, or were you good that you were not there and you were with your mom, like, or you were where you were, you know what I mean?
I wish we could have been there when he passed away, but we don't know really if that was his choice, because he was kind of that private person where the night prior he had his time with my mom and they had that discussion about, you know, whatever they talked about, and just getting him comfortable with what was about to happen, whatever the time frame. And we don't know if it was something he told the nurses, because he was still coherent. Like, he was still making decisions. He could make decisions for himself. But we didn't know if he told the nurse that, you know, don't call him, because my mom had left and said, please call us.
Right.
So we know. But it was apparent that when they called, it had happened already.
I see.
After we got there.
Gotcha.
So me personally, if it was up to me, I would have rather had been there, you know, said some last words.
Yeah.
I mean, I still did, of course, after, but there's just something, like, the closure would have been easier, I think, in the moment.
Yeah. Because, you know, I go back and forth about that, because it was all so just cosmic, because Wes passed away October 28, 2020. Mm-hmm. And then my dad got sick literally around, it was like Labor Day, like of 2021. Mm-hmm. And so all of that was happening. But, and then, so it was like his anniversary was coming up with the 1 year, like all these things. I was still drinking. I was still trying to figure, you know, stuff out. Like my injury, I was figuring that out, you know, whatever. But like, you know, I don't know. It was just a weird spot of time. And then, you know, I don't know, like I with Wes, like I didn't have the closure going to the funeral. Okay. Cause I wasn't really welcome. So I did my own version of like what it would have been like for us. And, cause he like bought me like a helicopter ride and whatever. And so we ended up like, so I went and did that, and that was like my, you know, closure. Mm-hmm. But with my dad, I was like, okay, I went through this. I learned from it. You know, I learned to not leave anything on the table, say everything, right? So I was like that, because my dad's very like, how you say, like private. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'm going to say all of it. I'm going to let you know real quick, I love you so much, but like, here's the real things. Like, I think this about you, da, da, da. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of laid it all out, you know? Mm-hmm. And he had this talk to my mom as well. I mean, like, we really didn't know and what was going to happen. And, you know, I don't know. It was like one of those things where I let my mom go for the day. Like, she would go and like do her things, and I would stay with them. Right. So we always kind of had someone with him. But that was one of those moments where I'm like, man, like if I'm gone working out, would I be okay with that? Mm-hmm. Because the day that Wes did pass away, I chose myself. Like, I chose to get a massage. I chose to go to work out, because I was in a constant state of, you know, dealing with all that stuff.
Right.
And, you know, I don't regret that. I don't look back at it and be like, oh, I shouldn't have been working out. I should have been like right beside him. I should have been watching what he was doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
So it's almost like you want to have been there, but then I also was like, I think that was God watching over me, like, because to see him in that state,
especially when we'd had a beautiful moment earlier that day.
Right. It would have ruined it. But it's also your parents versus significant other, boyfriend, that I think at that stage, it's a little different level. I mean, but I understand too.
Yeah.
So
it's just like, it just goes to show that every loss is different, every grief, like every, you know what I mean? Like it's also, it's very challenging to navigate. And so whenever that happened, after you got all the arrangements and did all that, like, do you feel like it brought you and your mom like closer? Because I mean, I know you stayed down here, like you stayed in Tennessee, right?
Right.
So there wasn't a time where you moved back up there or anything?
No, there wasn't. It was an option that I could move back home with my parents when everything happened with my ex.
Okay.
But I had been on my own for so long that it was going to be more of a shock to go and do that. So I was trying to do what I could to continue what I needed to do. And I wasn't happy in Minnesota either with how long the winters were. Like seasonal depression is real.
Awful. Like I don't know why. Like, cause I have friends that are from there and I'm like, nah, that ain't it.
Yeah. Like, so, and even now my mom's talking about moving down here because the reason we stayed in Minnesota was because of my dad. He wanted to stay up there for family and whatever other reasons he had. But my mom and I were always close. So it did bring us closer because she lost her other confidant. So she does come to me a lot and we kind of rant back and forth. I always say, they parented me when I needed it and now we can be friends.
I love that. No, that's exactly, that's awesome. Cause again, it is like, I think it's special in that moment too, because I do feel like that with my mom now, just with everything that we went through growing up and stuff. But like now to being like, she calls me her best friend, and that's a special,
it's a special bond. I mean, I don't know if you have the same thing, but there's days where it's like we're on the same wavelength, in different states, and I'm like, what's going on today? Something's off.
Yeah,
you're not yourself.
But that is really cool though. So did you guys do any? I guess let's take it back for a second. So when at this point, you hadn't found out about your ex officially
No, that was later in the year.
Okay. So what happened with that?
Kind of going this. So my dad passes away again. I'm just surviving really. And also kind of reliving the years I didn't have in college. So dealing with things, not the right way for me. I mean, I was binge drinking, binge eating. It was awful.
And no movement because you're injured.
Right. Yep. And so it was just a compound of a lot of negative things for me. And it just escalated. And in December, I went home to Minnesota for Christmas, spend time with family. I do that almost every year, except for recently because of how expensive things are. But almost every year I go back to Minnesota for Christmas for a week or two. And I was up there, and at this point, I'm still in contact, and even now, I'm still in contact occasionally with my ex-husband's father, my ex-father-in-law.
Okay.
And so I had went over to my ex-father-in-law's house to talk with him and just spend some time with him because we had gotten pretty close over the time that me and my ex were together. And just talking about things, and it came up that the whole reason for the divorce papers on the counter was partially because he didn't know how to have a conversation with me about what happened, but he had been sleeping with somebody else and they had gotten pregnant.
Oh, shoot. So he was like, I gotta do this now. Like there was okay.
Yeah. And he didn't know how to have a conversation like that.
Yeah.
And, people have asked me, well, would you still have worked it out? And, it might have been different at that time, but looking back, no, because at that point you've, for me, violated the most basic level of trust.
Yeah.
And I don't think, if I'm being honest and real with myself, that I could see that child and be able to love it in any sort of way, even though it's going to be around me for as long as it was around.
And there's nothing wrong with saying that either. That's I was actually, it's weird that you said that because I was watching a show and it's so random on Netflix, wherever, but something had similar happened or whatever, there was like, oh, the baby, whatever. And I was like, Yeah, like, I mean, I know it's not the baby's fault, but like also
it's a constant reminder.
It's a constant reminder. Exactly.
Yeah, and I don't think I could have moved past it.
Yeah.
Truly.
And that's knowing yourself too, and knowing what you would even be able to sell. I mean, because again, some of us stay in relationships after we've been cheated on, and some of us, don't. And again, it's just that because we all have different pain levels of threshold, and standards, and just like what we're willing to put up with, But so I guess, so when you found that out, were you just kind of like, okay, it all makes sense now? Like,
yeah, it all started to make sense. And at this time, I'm also starting to realize all these things that I was putting up with during the relationship that really weren't normal. Things that I had changed or done differently to accommodate him.
Okay.
It was a lot of give to him and not a lot of getting back.
Was he like controlling? Like, did he like try to tell you like you need to look this way, eat this way, those kind of things?
Okay. So it was a level of control. It was a level of like mental manipulation, both blatant and discreetly.
Yeah.
So and living through it, I didn't really realize these things were happening, but I found the gym my junior year of high school doing Zumba, and that's when I kind of found my love with movement. And then I found CrossFit when we were living in Kansas.
Okay.
And that sparked my love of weightlifting, which is really where my passion is when it comes to movement. But when he would ask, have you gone to the gym today? Or are you going to go? It wasn't, just curious. There was a negative connotation. It was like, well, have you gone to the gym today?
Yeah. Like you better show up, like go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I made all this progress and I was the healthiest I had been in my life prior to April prior to all this happening, April 2019. I was in the best shape of my life, lowest body fat percentage, the most endurance I've ever had, the most energy I've ever had. And he was still picking out things that were wrong. Yeah. Like it was like nothing was good enough. So at this point, and probably even months prior to that, I think, looking back, I stopped doing the movement for me and I was doing it for him.
Yeah.
And it took away that love that I had.
Yeah.
And that had happened with some other things too along the way. And just like, one of the things that's still a trigger for me is if people grab the back of my arm. Because that was another thing that he thought or made it seem like it was something fun, but it really was to be like, no, this needs to go.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And there was a lot of other things. I mean, my mom, this is a testament to my mother, and listen to your moms, guys. They know.
For sure.
But my mom saw some of these signs early on when we were dating in high school. She's like, I'm not a fan, but I'm getting weird vibes from him. But, if you love him, then, you got to do you.
Yeah.
And that's very much the way that my parents parented. They weren't helicopter. They would give their advice and say,
they're like, but it's your life.
Yeah. Right. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it and figure it out. You're going to learn the hard way.
Right.
Because we were all kind of stubborn because my dad was stubborn.
Yeah.
So, went through with it and she saw those things. But I mean, there had been an instance in high school where it was apparent that he would cheat. There was an instance then and I forgave.
Yeah.
So there was just like this roll up of things that happened that became clear as I got further and further away from it.
Right. But I think sometimes too, we just let life get like way too just in the way. You know what I mean? Because it's like with the military thing, it's the next thing. It's this, it's that. We just have to keep moving. I keep up, that you miss things. Yeah. And those things that I look back at, I'm like, well, obviously. Like
one of the biggest things is he was trying to pull me away from my family. He would get upset when I would go back home or when I would talk to my mom very often. I mean, we talked daily every other day, and that would upset him. And he would make comments about it, or he's like, I don't understand why you always have to go to her and talk about, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And so looking back, then I'm like, obviously he's trying to create that disconnect, but my mom and our eyes bond is so strong that just wasn't going to happen.
For sure, which is fantastic. Because like that's my thing is I feel like with my situation, it was more of like he was just always so like, well, you know, nobody loves me, like nobody cares, like the poor pitiful me. Yeah. And I was just like, no, like we do love you, like we want the best for you, like we're here for you, you know, all the things, motivational. Like, but I think he saw that in different people and acted different ways around different people, like kind of like a chameleon, you know, and that's like challenging as well. So it's just like you just don't. It's very hard to see, and I think that it's different when like people are telling you about the person, like, hey, versus like if you're constantly asking about the person, right. You know what I mean? So it's like, you have to kind of tread lightly with that. But yeah.
Well, and when you're so close to, for me, I realized how much I was trying to protect him because he was my significant other at the time. And that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And I mean, I think he played on that. I mean, he was kind of the stereotypical narcissistic person.
Right.
And had those traits.
So is he still with the girl he got pregnant?
Know.
Okay.
He was for a time, but I really don't know. Okay. As soon as I was able, I cut off all communication with him. Once all the bills and everything was separated, I was like, we can't do this.
Yeah. And so the divorce, it took like the 90-day type of deal, or was it?
No, it got delayed because of COVID. Okay. So we had filed the paperwork, I think, shortly before Thanksgiving of 2019. Okay. Because I remember leaving like a day or two after I filed the paperwork at the courthouse. Okay. Because he had at this point deployed.
Okay.
And so I went back to Minnesota, and then we were supposed to have a court date either end of January, February sometime, but it got delayed to April because the courts had shut down. And they ended up doing just a decision on the paperwork we filed. We didn't actually have to appear in court for it.
Well, that's good.
So, yeah, I mean, that was nice. And, I mean, I tried to go about it without making it more harsh and more tense. So we didn't get lawyers or anything involved. I was just ready to cut clean and
done. Yeah. So after, you know, this has happened, and so we're in about 2021, right? When did you start with movement again, or how did you even get back into movement with your back? Because I know you're still in pain at this point, and then you're, you know, dealing with like the mental stuff. Like, how did you get back in with movement? And also, did you do any grief like therapy, or did you go to anything, like have therapy with anybody like about all of it?
No, my therapist was my mother.
Okay, got it.
And some of my friends, but
how old are you at this point?
20 when this happened?
Yeah.
25, 24, 25.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And so, I mean, still pretty young. And I mean, really what was happening still at that point, it was slowing down at the end of 2020 and into 2021. Yeah. But I was still drinking heavily and just kind of using that as a coping mechanism. Yeah. And for a while, I really didn't deal with the grief from losing my father. I just kind of locked it away because I was trying to be strong for my mother, but also just keep moving forward because I had to sign on a house. I had to get that set up and get, you know, the cadence of just owning a house going. Yep. And it was sometime in January that it finally hit me. Yeah. And I had a roommate at the time, and I just broke down in my bedroom. Yeah. I mean, full on breakdown, uncontrollable. I couldn't be consoled. And all she did was just sit there and hug me.
Well, yeah, because you get to a point where you just physically, like, your body will either shut you down or your mind's going to shut down. And you just, like, snap.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I feel that so much, because I think that some people think that when you grieve, like, okay, well, you have this amount of time and, like, you know, whatever. And they have no clue that it is, like, just a part of you.
Yes.
And, like, you know, and again, how you choose to deal with it is your journey and only you. Like, and even though you went through those, you know, the binging or this or that or whatever, like I found with my stuff, it was like, honestly, like that was just what it was. You know what I mean? Like,
and I had to be okay with that. It took me a while because I struggled and still do struggle with emotional eating. And so it makes sense that was my go-to for binging, but I did beat myself up for a while after I started getting into the swing of things. And it honestly, it was a bunch of yo-yo. It was back and forth. I'd start again, stop again, start again, stop again. I had a gym membership in Columbia because I have my house at this point.
Yeah.
So I had a gym membership there, and a couple days a week I was still driving to the CrossFit gym in Nashville.
Okay.
Because they had opened up I don't remember when they opened up again after COVID, but they had opened back up.
Okay.
And eventually I stopped going there because it just got to be too expensive to drive there. It was an hour drive for an hour workout and drive an hour back.
Right. Yeah.
So that really put a stop to it the first time because I enjoy the group environment, the group classes, having somebody lead you along the way.
Right.
And so I kind of stopped going to the gym in town.
Okay.
And then, you know, the weight came back on. I really wasn't focused on diet at that point, just kind of working out, getting movement in, trying to release some of that stress. I wasn't really doing any heavy lifting because I still couldn't feel my back.
Yeah.
From the nerve blanching even a year later.
And I hope that everyone that's listening understands that like nerve damage, I used to roll my eyes at stuff like that. Like, oh, slip disc or, oh, like whatever, you know, vertebrae. No, like it affects every part of your body. Mm-hmm. Like it's not just like an isolated injury, like, or like whatever that you can get surgery on and then you go on. Like it's literally like you always will deal with that pain.
Yes.
Like in some form or fashion, or even just the weakness or like the Charlie horse. Like even right now I feel it. Like, but you have to adapt and change your mindset to be like, I still can have a quality way of life, even though I can't feel my leg or even though I can't feel my backside or whatever, you know? So like, I get that. And I think a lot of people just like really need to sit with like that is traumatic alone.
Yes.
Then on top of that, the mental side of dealing with grief and everything. Like it takes a very strong person, strong woman to be able to go through all of that, still get a house, you know, still get everything underway. I mean, because you could have easily, not that this would have been bad, but like you could have easily gone back, moved with your mom, let her take care of you and just ate and just, you know what I mean? And like worked and that be your life.
Yeah. But I knew I wasn't going to be happy doing that.
100%.
Because my job was fully, if you need to go to Minnesota, we'll let you go remote. There's no issues.
Wow. Okay.
They were and still are willing to work with me. And I'm grateful, especially through everything that happened, that they were so flexible with everything.
That is fantastic. Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been happy if I moved back to Minnesota. I mean, yes, I would have been with my mom, but everything else wouldn't have been the way that I wanted it to be. So I had to fight and figure out how to get what I needed together for a house down here. And I made it work in a month time span. So kind of just coming back to that briefly, because I'll forget about it again. But I was supposed to keep the house in Columbia through the whole process.
Okay.
And we were just supposed to sign the papers over once he got back from deployment because I knew that I could afford that house on the income that I had. I already had that cadence under control.
Right.
But at some point, when he got back and before the divorce was finalized, he had filed paperwork with the military that basically he was able to keep the housing allowance so he could keep the house. And so that kind of got ripped out from under me. And I was like, well, I'm not living here.
Right.
And I'm not going to Minnesota.
Yeah.
So I need to figure out something else. And so I had a month to do that.
I see.
And this was, again, while my dad was sick. But so, it's crazy the amount of manipulation there was through everything that hindsight's 2020.
Right. Well, so... Okay, so we go through all this, whatever, and you're back now to your like with him, you deal with all that with him, and now he's out of your life completely. Okay, so then when you got back into the movement side of things, did you feel like were you in constant pain, like in terms of like with everything? Did you find some relief at all? Like did you PT?
There really wasn't no pain because what they had done at the pain clinic is they pretty much burnt the end of my nerves in my low back. It was like a pain med injection that they did just underneath the skin, not into the spine, but all the nerves in my low back were deadened and those had to come back. And so for a while I didn't have I wasn't aware of how those muscles in my low back and in my glutes and my hamstrings were moving. And so those got incredibly weak.
Yeah.
To the point that I couldn't even do like a glute ham raise on the glute ham developers.
Oh, wow.
Without assistance. I had to use a PVC pipe to help
you get, yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so a lot of that movement was me just trying to figure out how to move and strengthen those without being able to feel them and
feeling around, adapting. Yep.
And feeling defeated, which is why it was the on again, off again, because I couldn't do the things that I used to love doing.
Yeah.
And so,
well, it's really frustrating because I mean, I know with mine, it was like they're like, you can walk and then you can do 3 exercises.
Yep.
Bird dogs, side plank, and, what was the other thing? Like assisted, like pelvic tilts or whatever, you know, but, or modified curl ups, what they called it. But anyway, the big McGill 3. And like, that was awful. But I did them and I was like, you know what, fine. Do them every day.
Yep.
Do them multiple times a day. Whatever's going to help me get better. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then it was just like, it was not getting any better. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is the reality of it. Like, we got to find a different way. So then started with like slow movements or, you know, like TRX things again and like kettlebell, you know, just walking, core tight, like really focusing on my core. Because as you know, got to get our core. Because everyone thinks like your core is just the 6-pack, your abs, whatever. Like, no, core wraps around your back, guys. So like, you know, with everything, with your transverse and with your obliques, it's just like all of the parts of your core, like you have to have a strong back. To, you know, for all that to function properly. And I think people get so superficial about that and don't think about that. But it's like, no, like both have to be to match up, you know? And that's why I always said before, even when I had like, you know, excess body fat or whatever, I was like, my core is strong. And like, and I always focused on that and bracing. And like, you know, when we do sessions and stuff like that breath is so important, and especially for your lifts and for everything that we're doing. So it is that, like, because I don't play around with that anymore.
Nope.
Because I mean, I don't know. It's just, at the end of the day, it's crazy because I see so many people with like bad form on Instagram and like lifting heavy and doing all that. And like, and no offense to CrossFit, you know, like I said before, it's fine. But it just like, if you've had any issues with your back at all, like, then that is maybe not the path you should be going on, you know? Yeah. And if that's the only thing in life that's going to bring you joy, then like, I get it and whatever, but we got to find ways to adapt.
Yep.
So like now, you know, you do like Dani Fitness online program, which is great. And, you know, and I customize that for you and for, you know, everything you have going on and for your body right now. We don't live in the past.
Nope.
We're not sitting here being like, we're trying to get back to, you know, we're not trying to get back to a body. We're not trying to like, you know, any of that. We are trying to be, what is Naomi? What does she want? What is her best now in this stage of life?
Yep.
Right. And I think that has coincided with everything, you know, with now, because you're in a happy relationship, right?
Yes.
Which is amazing.
He's amazing.
And that's fantastic. And so again, that goes with everything. It's like when you weren't trying to find, you know, and go back to old things or like, oh, I have someone to replace him. It's like, no, this is a totally different situation. No. You're a totally different person. And you know what you like. This is why movement is so special. It's like, you know, now what it can bring, like, and a healthy lifestyle can truly bring to your relationship, finances, everything. Because now you're telling me that you're like setting an example for like meal prep and stuff.
Yep.
Versus him telling you, hey, you need to eat this.
Yep.
Right?
It's totally different. The support is totally different.
Yes.
And I went through identity crisis for sure. And so that was another reason for the back and forth. It was like, well, do I really even love the gym anymore?
How did you end up meeting the guy that you're dating now?
So I met him using online dating, Bumble. I had to send the first message. And for once, I was actually clever with something. It was right before Christmas of, it's 2023. So right before Christmas of 2022.
Okay.
We've been together for a year and a half. So whatever that Christmas is, I can't do that math right now.
I think that's 2022.
Okay. Yeah, 2022. So right before Christmas of 2022, I had sent a line. He was like, "This is the best pickup line that I have ever heard."
Okay.
And we went to dinner like 2 nights after I had sent that message, and we had talked till like 3:00 in the morning. It was on like a Tuesday night.
Okay, hear that, ladies? What did she just say?
2 days after she sent the message. Okay, that is efficient, that is effective, and that is how it's supposed to be done. This whole them like talking to you for like 3 months before they ask you on a date is ridiculous. And I just think absurd.
Yeah.
Either like, let's nail it down right now. Like, I'm not like, you know what I mean? Like, just let's meet. Like, why waste time?
Yeah. And I had a busy schedule at that time. I was working 2 jobs.
But even if you didn't, even if you just stayed at home, you know what I'm saying? Like, it still should be like this, like, hey, I'm trying to pursue you. Like, that's attractive.
Yes.
You know?
It is.
Like, so I love that. So, okay. So you hit him with that pickup line. Y'all went on a date like 2 days later, whatever.
Yep.
And what was the vibe? Like,
I mean, we could not stop talking. We closed down the restaurant and we still weren't ready to part ways. So we ended up just talking in his car for like 2 or 3 more hours and just having a conversation and diving into different things. And both of us were probably like, look, we both have work in the morning.
Yeah, we got to get out of here. We got to wrap this up.
Mind you, that he lives down in Huntsville, and so this was about an hour away from Columbia, where I was living at the time, and we met halfway. So we both had
that too.
We both had a distance to drive.
Yes.
And so we were like, look, we got to call it. We'll definitely do this again soon. We exchanged numbers, and that was that. And just continued to move forward.
Is he originally from the South?
He's from the South, but not Huntsville. Okay. He grew up in Mississippi.
Okay, gotcha. And then had he, like, he's a little bit older, you said?
He is,
okay. Had he had a healthy lifestyle journey at the time, or was he not really working out?
At the time that I met him, not really.
Okay.
He was kind of going through his own phase of trying to figure out life on his own with his first job outside of graduating college.
Okay.
So he was just kind of getting situated in that, which really that at this point it wasn't a problem for me.
Yeah.
Because I was just starting to get back into movement.
For sure.
And figuring out what I could do and finally starting to get feeling back in my lower back and my hamstrings.
Which is great.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, and I was at a place where I'm like, it didn't bother me that he wasn't working out every day.
Yeah.
But it's not like he also was just sitting around not doing anything.
So had you gone on a ton of Bumble dates, or was this kind of like, you're like, I'm just going to try this out and see? Like, what was that like?
It was actually right before I was getting ready to delete the app because I was kind of fed up with everything.
All the nonsense.
Yes.
Yep.
I was ready to delete the apps and just be done. And I was about to throw my hands up and be like, screw it. I'm going to meet them somewhere. They're going to come to me, knock on my door. I don't know. But I was like, okay, one last shot.
Yeah.
He was a lot different than the type of person I would normally go for, but there was something that drew me in to his profile. Yeah. And I was like, well, we'll just give it a shot, see what happens. And I mean, almost an immediate response. I was like, okay, we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So then, and so that's the end of 2022. And then, right. Okay. And so.
Or 2021.
2021.
Yes. End of 2021, because we've been together a full year.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then then you ended up moving in together?
Yeah, and that happened just recently.
Okay, yeah.
So
congrats. I love that. I love that.
Prior to that, it was a lot of me driving
Commuting.
back and forth. Yeah. Because I was the one with the busier schedule. I still had 2 jobs for a little bit.
Okay.
And so I had more to try to handle. I also had 3 dogs that I had to consider too, that I couldn't always bring down there. So I was driving down there and, spending the weekend or spending a night, and then, we'd do something the next day, and then I'd come back and do what I needed to do. Okay. And then those time periods staying down in Alabama just progressively got longer.
Yep.
And, I mean, the conversation had happened prior to that, like, what, are we comfortable living together? When's the right point? I just never pushed it.
Did you live together with your ex-husband?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So kind of, like, was there anything, I don't know, I guess, what would you say to listeners who are like on that verge of like, I don't know if they want to live together before like they get married? Like, would you say like highly suggest it, or are you like, everyone's just different, or I mean, what's kind of your...
Everyone's different. I mean, in a sense, lived with my ex-husband before we got married. But really we didn't fully live together because I was spending my week at college and then I was just home on the weekends.
I see. Okay. Gotcha.
So
this is the first time like really living
fully,
together. Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It just depends on the person.
Yeah.
I think you do find out a lot more about a person when you live with them or spend a significant amount of time with them.
Yeah.
So to some degree, I'd recommend it, but I know it's not for everyone.
Yeah, I gotcha. So then what about like in terms of now? I mean, so I guess like 'cause you've been living together for about, you said how long now?
It wasn't, there's not an official date. It's been maybe a month or two, little over 2 months.
Okay, cool. I love that. And so now he's kind of started adhering more to like the meal prepping and like all the movement and everything like that. And that's awesome. I mean, he probably sees you. Like when I truly say, guys, like Naomi is like so consistent, so hardworking. And like that should go to show people that like, again, it's not even just about like, oh, that, what is it? You know, that all or nothing mentality. It's not even that.
No.
You've literally been able to look at it as, okay, like I've done this in my way.
Yep.
And like on my terms and when I was ready and everything like that. And put yourself out there though, versus waiting for things to come to you, you know, like showing up to the expo and like, you know, and all that. And then like, even like putting yourself out there on the app, which can be vulnerable, like, you know, and all that stuff too. 'Cause like it's hard when you've gone through loss of any type, and relationships and everything like that. Just to even think clearly about like, what is the next step, you know?
And just being honest with people too. Like I always, regardless of the person, I always tried to be upfront. Like, look, at one point I was married.
Yeah.
Stuff happened. We're not together anymore. Take it or leave it. Because I know that's a big thing for some people.
Did a lot have a problem with that? Okay.
There was a lot of people that had a problem with that, partially because of my age.
Okay. I see. I mean, I have clients from all different walks of life, but some that have been married twice and that are your age or, you know, or whatever. I mean, there's again, stuff happens, bad stuff happens to, you know, to great people, obviously. But like, it's again, that's the thing too. I never want to come off to any men that actually, you know, that listen to the podcast. I never want to come off of like that I would assume that they would be a narcissist like Wes was, or that I would assume that they would do things like, you know, I don't assume, or they would cheat or whatever. I don't assume anything. No. I'm going to take you as you are.
Yep.
Just like a client, just like a friend, just like whoever. Like you show me by your actions who you are.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to put up with less than I deserve because obviously you've been through that, you know, don't want to go back to, you know, to any of that stuff.
You just learn to stand more firm on your ground and what you're going to accept and not accept.
Well, right. Like I had someone message me the other day that was like, oh yeah, I just figured you'd reach out or like whatever. And it was like, you pursued me. Oh, well, yeah, you're just so busy. I'm like, bruh. Literally, like, I'm going to always be busy. Like, that's just my life, I feel like. And also, if an action would have been finding out where I live or finding out, not live, but like, you know, where I work or whatever, right? But I'm saying like to send me flowers or something, okay? It's not that hard.
Yeah.
My stuff's everywhere. My phone number's everywhere.
You're a very open person.
Like, I mean, shoot.
You told me.
Oh God! So it's actually the fence right now. Like, let me go. Like, they're waiting outside until I'm done with the podcast. So, no. But hey, but seriously though, the whole like, oh, I was gonna, but like, it's like exactly.
Yeah.
Go like you can literally I didn't even know how to work Uber Eats and all that until like this past year. But like you can send stuff to somebody too. Like I'm like, you can't send me something like even I don't drink coffee, but like even someone with the thought,
the gesture, yes.
Yeah. Like oh my gosh, but yeah, just stuff like that. So it's just wild. But you know, I am happy that you have been open. And that takes, you know, a strong woman as well, but like been open to love again, open to all that. And that's how I feel as well, and excited for.
Yes.
And I do think that though you had to internally work on your timeline. You didn't let anyone rush you. You didn't let, you know, like even stray you off your path.
When I started using other people's timelines or what I thought was, you know, the perfect timeline, that's when I would get anxious or too caught up and I would stop. So I just had to take that time and really focus on myself internally and baby step my way back. I mean, it wasn't overnight. Like, yes, I reached out to you in March to start programming. But that had been quite a ways already along the process. I had started working movement back in and accepting it and loving it again at the like November, December of 2022, and getting back into CrossFit.
Yeah.
And just, starting with a day here, a day there, and then working up to that. And then I knew I couldn't just go all in and meal prep. Yeah. I had to focus on changing those habits slowly.
Right.
I had to focus on getting more of the veggies in and just being conscious of what I'm eating. And then, okay, let's look at macros and just start tracking what am I eating currently versus where should I be.
Yes.
And then moving to the next and just keep moving forward.
Exactly. But you kept moving forward. And that is where, to someone listening right now, they may be like, oh man, that's so overwhelming or whatever. But it's like, no, you just stepped one foot at a time. And that's why I tell people, I was like, I started back with movement, and then I got my food in check with a coach. And then I got so again, it just, you have to do it on your own timeline. And that's why it was awesome, because I mean, you saw me and like you said before, 2019.
Yeah.
So, 4 years later, and then being like, okay, this is like, I'm at my time right now, because who knows where you would have been, and maybe we wouldn't have had this relationship or whatever if you would have worked with me before, or if I would have been like, oh yeah, you need, or whatever, how it is, like online and stuff, whatever. And so that's why it's like, I try to be mindful as a trainer and everything like that. Like, I see the potential in people, especially through like Instagram. I see like, I can kind of feel that and understand like when they reach out. But it's like, truly getting to watch like your journey has like helps me know that like, I don't know that, not that I need to like, but like even that I need to be open more too, and like step out of my comfort zone. And like, cause for a while there, I couldn't really do it. Like, I stopped like talking to the camera, and like, I couldn't really see myself anymore,
Well, and it's hard when you're dealing with those things.
Yeah. And so, and even like reaching out to people, like I saw people like struggling, and I was just like, man, I can't, I had the capacity.
Yep.
And so then it was just like, no, like it's like you and like a lot of my new clients like have given me motivation to be like, man, these women are awesome. They're strong. They're trying to fight. And that gives me life.
Yeah.
And so that helps me to be my best for the next, person that maybe is coming through something like, like that.
And I'll also say, as not only a client, but somebody that followed you for a long time, it is the fact that you are so real on your social media. You don't just post the highlight reels. I mean, you're honest about the bad days, the hard days, when you are struggling. And that is really what pulled me closer to following you, is because our journeys did seem to be so aligned, and you were being so real about it. I felt like I wasn't the only one, that there was somebody else that understood these different things that were going on.
That's awesome. And that means a lot, seriously, because yeah, I mean, I think at that time when you're saying this, whatever, I was being told by multiple people to not say things. You know what I mean? Like, I was being told to make myself small. Like, don't really don't like show out. Like, don't like, hide, be scared, live in fear, whatever. And it was like, bruh, no, like, I don't like, I can't, like, it was killing me.
Yeah.
And so I knew, and it wasn't to be like, oh yeah, like that girl's going to see it and it's going to help her. It wasn't even like that. It was just like, I just got to share this because I know I can't be the only one.
Yep.
And the fact that nobody's talking about this, or people are acting like my circumstance is so crazy and so wild and whatever, which it was crazy and it was wild and it was messed up.
Yeah.
But there are other people going through that. So I think so many times with social media and everything, everybody like minimizes and thinks that like, oh no, this is only me, my problems, this and that, whatever. And then they're like used as an excuse to not move or to not go do things or to not live life. And it's like, no, you can't. And that's why I was asking about the therapy and stuff, because with the grief group and whatever, like that's what I leaned into because it was helpful for me at a time. Just for someone to be like, yeah, I feel you. Like, this shit is hard, like, and it does suck and people don't understand. And, and that was cool, So it makes it just the more real that you can be with your journey and the more open you can be. I just feel like that's just freedom, and that's just how it should be. Yeah. And I'm glad that people are starting to relate to that and understand that and then push that mission.
It takes the pressure off of your shoulders. I mean, since being open about what's happened to me, it's helped so much. I don't feel like I have to hide details or hide certain things. Like, I'm just, this is what happened. This was my view of it, think what you want, but this is my journey.
Exactly. And I love that. And you should be able to share that. And there shouldn't,
be any, no reason for you not to. But also too, I do want to say, because if anyone has followed my Instagram that's listening, then you've seen like my pictures I've put up of Naomi. And again, when I do like, the weight loss and transformation and stuff like that, it's not to be like that. It's just that, like, it's her whole demeanor. Like, you have this confidence, you just have this beauty, you just, every time I see you, it gets stronger, it gets better. And like, that's awesome too.
Yeah. And that's something that's new to me this go around and I really do attribute it to the support, not only from the group and community that you've built, but also from my boyfriend at the time. I mean, he has supported me every step of the way and done what he can to, make that process easier, because he knows there's temptations, he knows there's things, and it's already hard enough. And I appreciate that so much, and it's made such a difference there. And my family now understanding, like, this is what I do. Like, it's not changing.
Like don't what is it, second guess me. Like, like, it's and I love that. And so again, creating that safe space. And so with that, you just got to come to the LYB gym and you got to do your workout. So glad you love it. Crane Fitness sponsored it, and Core and Health Fitness and all that. And so, got some Stairmaster, we got squat rack, you deadlifted today, feel good. Body feels good. And you did great. And it was really special to have you in there. And and again, like, we work mainly online together, but I love anytime that you get to come up here is so special. So if you could tell, anyone listening, just like in terms of with like the Dani Fitness community and stuff, like, what has been something that, has there been anything that surprised you with like being a part of, because you followed for so long. So it's like from just following to actually becoming a client, to then even becoming an ambassador, like, what would you tell them has been something that maybe surprised you or just something that's excited you about it?
How close the community is, really. I mean, they take you in as soon as you're at it, and it's like your family. I mean, everyone loves you and they support you from the beginning, even your small wins. And they support you on your hard days, when you're having a tough time, they're like, no, you got this. Do what you need to do, you got it. And that's been great, just to have another community to have that. And then getting together at the events. I mean, the amount of people that come, not even just from Nashville, but people are coming in from out of town. And that's really special to see these people coming together to support the same message.
Yes. And I love that. And what would you tell everyone so for those that don't know, my 3 messages are: get your movement in, love your body, fight for what you want. Which one has stuck with you the most, or has it evolved? Has it changed?
It's evolved, but I think still the core one that sticks with me is fight for what you want, because for so long, that's what I had to do. Fighting for what I wanted out of my life and what I knew I needed. And then fighting just to take that next step forward. But now it's evolved into adding love your body. 'Cause I'm finally at a place where, I'm comfortable with where my life is at, but now I want to make the best version of me. And see where I can get. And so I'm finding new challenges.
For sure. And you have a competition, which is awesome. And you're going to be doing that. You're going to crush that, which will be super cool. And then maybe even thinking about some other things in the future.
We're thinking about bodybuilding shows. Okay, so it's becoming more real. I've been doing a lot of research on it, and I think that's probably the next step. Just because, not that I love CrossFit, but the competitive aspect in CrossFit has the potential, and it's happened before, to put my back in a compromising position. And not that I'm old, I'm only 27, but I need to be conscious of the damage I can do now and how it's going to affect me later.
No, for sure. And that's what, you're building the building blocks right now, and I love that. And so that's where, I've told, that's what, even with the mindset coaching stuff, with bodybuilding, I'm trying to tell competitors and people that don't jump into a show and then think that that's going to resolve your problems. You know what I'm saying? Or that's going to fix things. That to me is someone being like, oh yeah, we're having marital problems, but let's have a kid. That'll make things better. And you're like, maybe we readjust this for a second. Right. And so that's why, it's cool, because again, no unrealistic timelines or no unrealistic goals, just unrealistic timelines. So it's to look at it and say, okay, slowly building it up. Like for you, your strength has gotten better, your form has gotten better, your body's shaping out, like all these special moments, your food and getting that under control. And again, you didn't tell anybody on today's podcast. You weren't like, oh yeah, my food is perfect, my workouts are perfect, my movement is perfect. Like no. Like there's times, there's lulls, there's different things. So again, you're creating a realistic, healthy lifestyle journey so that if you did want to do a bodybuilding show for a season, you could do it. Yeah. If you did want to go into something else, you could do it. Like, because again, you're functionally fit and you're becoming your healthiest self. So I love that. That's awesome, girl. Yeah. You're crushing it. So then the other thing I was going to say real quick, so you have your dreams, you have your goals and everything that you're going towards. In terms of loving your body,
yes,
what has been like the favorite piece in that? Like, is there a lift that you just feel so confident with now? Is there a, like, your actual, like, a body part that you love? Like, what is it? Just your overall demeanor? Like, what is it like?
I mean, I guess I'll kind of do too. As far as like body part, I've always loved my legs, and just because they've always been really strong. And now seeing them shape out again, that's been really nice to see that change and evolution. But overall, just my resiliency is something else I love. No matter what has been thrown my way, I've been able to figure it out and work it out.
No, for sure. I love that. And again, it's one of those things where at the end of the day, it's so easy to look back and be like, well, yeah, like what else was I going to do? But like so many people don't ever rise above, you know, like they carry it. They let life define them. And I feel like you are truly just like blazing forward and like you're defining like what you want for your life. So I love it. Naomi, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate you. And you know, I'm excited to see what all you accomplish, and it's only going to be amazing things.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure and a blessing to be training with you.
Thanks, girl. Until next time.
Yes.
Yay! That was awesome.